Good morning, everyone, and we shall call this meeting to order. Public comment? Anyone? Let the record show there is no one requesting to speak. And number 3 on the agenda, budget workshop. Mr. Hewitt, are you going to start off, or?
Yes, sir. I have some follow-ups from the previous meeting before we turn it over to Mandy. Just wanted to point out in your packages, we've continued to include the Board of Commissioners 2019 goals for the purposes of reference, and should the commissioners desire to provide any further guidance, impart anything toward the refinement of those goals. I don't know how we will ultimately use those as we bandy back and forth between the actual spreadsheets, but anyway, we've included those in there. And also, secondly, on an administrative note, you'll see that the actual spreadsheets in there, in your packages, are organized by fund, revenues versus expenses by fund, as opposed to previously we had organized it by revenues, then by fund, and then by expenses by fund. Hopefully that will facilitate the back and forth comparison by fund. And also, just in case you're wondering what this sheet is, we happen to notice that we did not strike a total after the end of the expenses, and we'll do that on the next one. But this is since the packages had already gone out, that's what this attempts to do, is to show you the by fund revenue versus expenses. And so anyway, that's what that sheet is. I do have three other details that I wanted to bring to your attention. There was a question regarding in the BPART fund, or the capital reserve fund for the beach fund. We had pointed out, I believe, the budgetary entry for the returned monies from the county's interlocal agreement was budgeted at $26,000. The actual entry was $36,000, with the delta being the interest. And what that dialogue that ensued was that in our amended fund balance policy, the commissioners had said when that money comes back from the county, the surety money that the county holds, to put that into the beach reserve fund. And the question I think that I asked of myself was, do y'all want the interest to go in there? And just, if you'd indulge me, that the resolution actually reads, the refunded P&C surety monies given to Brunswick County will be placed back in that beach nourishment fund. For my purposes, that is clear enough for me to stuff the interest monies back in there. And if that's okay with the board, I'll just ask the clerk to make sure that's spread on the minutes here, and we'll proceed that way. I don't think there's a need to to further refine to that level of detail. But that's to answer that. So unless y'all have objection, I'll interpret it that way, and that's what I'll do. Okay. Secondly, there was a entry in miscellaneous revenue. Mr. Fletcher, I believe you have that. There was like $40,000 of budgetary item in the general fund. I think we budgeted $7,000. I think the entry was $43,000, and I was guessing that it was maybe we got some FEMA money and we stuck it in there as a holding account till we could parse it out. Well, it wasn't FEMA money. My general thought was correct, though. That's actually sales tax money that we received on various things that we buy, and the way that works is we get a check, and for convenience purposes, we deposit it into that specific line item. Then later we parse it out to the different funds. So that by journal entry, that's a calculation that we have to do manually, and those dispersions to the water fund, the B Park fund, have been made now. So it.
Is that a monthly thing you have to
No,
file?
that's an annual.
You do it once a year?
That's a sales tax.
So go to everybody that you dealt with and ask for funds?
It rolls up. So, and normally what happens is that is a gross receipt that we make sure that we get it right when we actually parse it out to the different funds. So when you get the budget, the actual for the next month, it'll show that in those sales tax refund lines in each one of the funds, those are about right in terms of what we have, what we budgeted. Now, in the water fund, it's probably going to be a bit heavy because of the sales tax on the lift station upgrade on those components. So that will come back in. And lastly, the question on the video teleconferencing, the opinion. We've sent that to y'all, the information. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review it and see, what your druthers were, but we have not pulsed any further because we haven't heard anything back from you guys yet. So that's kind of over to y'all what you want to do before we go out to the public and ask anything. I don't want to throw it out there to the public unless you guys have further interest in it or want me to pulse the public before you take a position on it. But those were the follow-ups from the last meeting and how things are structured.
So just a part of that, in addition to streaming it live, would we also be saving it and having it online after that?
It's actually, yes, it's
So you have
recorded.
both options.
It's recorded and indexed. So there's actually a digital agenda. So if you only want to go in later on and see, item number 12 on it, you can just click on that. Whereas now you got to go listen through 3 hours of whatever before you get to what.
Is there a cost to doing that for us?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
$27,000.
not talking for live streaming, for just putting it online, for recording and
Currently-
putting it online.
Currently, we don't have a cost. No, currently because it's we're just scabbing onto
So the
YouTube
27 would simply be that we want to make it available live to people who want to watch it as it happens.
and have it recorded for posterity, and then to be able to have the indexing of the actual meeting and to review as you wish.
And this is video as well as audio?
Yes, it's a movie.
Do you need us to decide on that?
Well, we had provided it to you. I guess I'm at the position. Well, what do y'all want me to do with it?
At this rate, I'd be in favor of paying if it's 20,000 or something extra, to be able to live stream it and save it and have it on. I mean, it's a big transparency for the public, most of whom don't live on the island.
Well,
It's mine. You all chime in?
Well, what I was, and I didn't mean to tee that up for a decision for you. I think you were at, do you want to gather more opinion before you push that forward? That was, I was at a baby step. I mean, if you want to go in it head first and put that thing in the budget, that's fine too.
I mean, I suggested that we try to reach out quickly to owners and just ask a simple question. If we had this, would that make it more likely that they would, sort of try to stay abreast
Okay.
more? Would it encourage them to follow things? Because if we get a no, that it really isn't, then even though it'd be nice to have, maybe it's not a high priority. But I don't know how quickly you can do that, but if you could do it quickly, and to me, if we would just get 10% saying, yes, it would make me more likely, to keep abreast, that would be worthwhile.
And my first inclination is to say, we can send a blast out and say, what do you think, kind of thing. I don't know how representative that blast is of everyone. I know that I can touch everyone that has a monetary interest in Holden Beach with a water bill. That just went out. We can do something with the blast to just realize that may not be, the whole enchilada, but it's better than nothing. We can do that fairly quickly.
It's a basic sampling. If we look at it that way.
They just kind of windshield and spitball with it. If that's, I'm always hesitant to start sampling through that email blast because of possibly watering down the utility of it. We really try to only do important things, but if this rises to the level of you guys think it's important, we can put it out there. We can pulse them this way.
To me, if you kind of take several steps back, this is our communications plan, right? I think we need to take a new look at how we communicate to the public. I talked about this, several times with, when we go for months and do an ordinance, and then all of a sudden we get that giant feedback. So there's obviously something, in my opinion, something broken with how we communicate with the public. So.
Do y'all want me to pull the public with an email blast and bring that information back to the the next workshop?
How broad is your list of people that you would send an email to?
How many people on that?
It's about 3,000 people, but it doesn't have to be people on the island. So there are people like vacationers who
Do
also.
you know what percentage of the owners?
I don't. It doesn't ask for that. No.
It's pretty much free range on signing up for it.
So again, it's struggling with this kind of.
Who's your audience?
Well, just that we're struggling with trying to decide what we do. I think we need to.
Let me hold on a
We
second.
need to
Mark,
really take a step back and look at how we communicate to
let me
stakeholders.
we can always send another letter to the water customers. We could send a query out to the water bill customers.
We can add it to the bill or inside.
We can send them a separate letter.
Letter, either way.
And so that,
And they'll go out the
what's the
first
day,
day.
Thursday? We could, give me till Monday to, put something, we could send that out. It would be the end of next week, probably before anybody, and they may not respond at all, to a letter.
Did you want to say something, Mike? I know you've been trying for several minutes.
I was going to say what Peter said, and then we're going back and forth. It's kind of circular reasoning, right? We don't get people to participate because they don't hear what we have to say, but now we're going to ask them to respond to something that we want to increase their ability to hear what we have to say. So, although I think it's a valid idea, I don't know how much we're going to gain by it. And as I said, I'm the one who brought this suggestion to David in the first place, and I think that for $27,000, that's a one-year cost. We can see how it works, and if we don't like it, like many other things we've done, we don't have to put it into the budget next year. It's not something that we're buying into forever. But if we get really a minimal response, where we don't think it adds any value to what we're trying to do, we don't have to do it again. But I think we should take the opportunity to see how it works. And again, we can, it's the old, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We send out all kinds of information, we have all kinds of open meetings, you look out there today and you can see, you can't make people pay attention. We can't make people get involved. We can try. And that's what this is. This is another attempt to try to get more involvement in what we do.
But I got,
David, excuse me, with the process, would we be able to track how many people actually watched it?
I believe so. There's a
They
count.
can have to check in, right?
Yeah,
They check in, and
they-
somebody checked in,
Yeah, how many
so that way
views?
we'd know. Yeah, exactly. If you did it for a year,
A count.
you find out a lot of people are viewing it versus only a few.
I actually believe that there is a capability for interrogatories to occur during a meeting. That may go to how the board wants to interact with the public also, like, I don't know if you want to open yourself up to that, but I'm sure that there is a comment feedback kind of piece of it. And you certainly can basically, you're transmitting on the way out, and then any feedback could be reviewed subsequent to the meeting. So that would, there is a feedback mechanism in addition to counting how many users there are. So there's a quantitative and a qualitative aspect of that feedback loop, which I think ultimately is what you're trying to do.
And the feedback is not live streamed. The feedback is after the meeting is concluded and it's posted.
I think you have the option on how you want to do that. I think it would be hard, just like you allow comments during a meeting or not during a meeting. There is a management protocol that's involved in that too.
who's responsible for communications on staff?
Pardon me?
Is there one person responsible for communication?
Technically, the technical side of it, all formal communications go through the town clerk. I function as the gatekeeper on what goes out, to make sure, unless there are specific matters, for example, the police operations, that is strictly a function of the police chief.
I mean, technically is only one aspect of communication, right?
Right.
There's a lot other before you get to the technical aspect. And, who else, with this company, what's the track record? Who else is using it? How successful? What's the feedback? I'd have a lot of other questions. That's why I'm saying, I don't know if anybody's listening to me, but take a step back. How we handle communications. What's the level of that we want to use some of these communications? What constitutes? Do we have it written down? Do we have any guidelines of what goes out in the water bill? We have a lot of ways to communicate, and there's no rhyme or I don't know of any rhyme or reason how we communicate what, and I think it's a big issue that we're grappling with.
If I may inject some thought and knowledge about this, if I get out of line, I'm sure you'll stop me, but there are several things that I would suggest that you think about. Previous boards have talked about this. Previous towns have done this, some of which think it's a great idea, and some towns and counties quickly stopped. Some of the thoughts and results being it may, I don't know how it would impact Holden Beach, but some towns found that the attendance of the meetings went down. Whenever somebody could sit in their recliner at home in comfort and eat, rather than getting in their car and coming down here. There's one thought. And some other things that can be plus or minus, which I'm sure all of you will think through. But one of the big things that's on my mind is we already, as I understand it, have the minutes on the town website. Is that not true?
We have the minutes and the audio also.
So is there the difference being live versus reading after the fact, and I tried to make known my feelings about the minutes. I think our clerk does a great job, but I think our clerk, puts a lot of things in the minutes that are not necessary, in an attempt to be overly providing information to those that may be reading the minutes. Minutes generally are more condensed and to the point. So the reason I'm saying this is because she is going overboard and beyond what I consider the standard of practice in presenting information in minutes. That, in my mind, is a wonderful thing in an attempt to go overboard to provide information to our property owners that have an interest in what's going on. If it's there to listen to and there to read, anyway, is it worth spending 0.25%, correct me if I'm wrong, 1/4 of a penny on our tax rate to provide a live stream? If you provide a live stream to them, they're at home sitting there, so they get it before they would get it on the website. What can they do sitting at home? They can't raise their hand and be recognized. I don't know, $27,000 a year is a lot of money.
The 27 actually included the first year's purchase of the equipment, so the annual cost is about $12,000.
12,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you got to buy the equipment up front.
okay, so it's going to take $27,000 to find out whether we like it or not.
Right.
Well,
So I would say to you in doing your thinking and your research, communicate to other towns and communities that have tried this and get the feedback from them. I know we have a very active POA, of which I have served president for a few years. I have an understanding of what the POA at Holden Beach does and the homeowners here. I represent about 350 homes on this island. And so I hear what those 350 homeowners say and feel, and we'll take that into consideration as my final opinion, but I'm not saying I'm for or against. I'm just saying if we already have it available, I don't know whether it's worth that much more money to go the extra mile or not. So, Ms. Pat?
well, I was going to say, Peter, I have been listening to you, and I see pluses and minuses as the mayor does, so it's a question. And I can see that an evaluation of our overall communication methodology would be worthwhile before making decisions on what the priorities are. So I would simply suggest that we make that a priority objective for the Board of Commissioners for the upcoming budget year, and then let's do it right and have it all laid out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 musts and all that, just like we go through other stuff. And so it could be taken by one of the commissioners to lead that in the new fiscal year as a priority to come to conclusions before the next budget cycle. And again, I see pluses and minuses to both. I do have the mayor's reservation as well that people will have fewer people here and then fewer public comments.
Yeah, I'd even ask if you could index any audio. Is there any other technology around simple audio to index? So take a step back.
We only looked at that one capability. And that was,
Right. So
that was the question, that was posed, and that was the answer that we brought back.
And I'd also, to your point, Pat, really organizationally, maybe we should have somebody with the total communication, not just the technology, but everything around communication. But, yep, I agree.
I mean, I would love to, rather than go through and spend 3 hours going through the minutes to get to the point that I want to review, I think that's a huge benefit. However, does the existing system that we currently use or have, is there any way that that can be modified or added to add that convenience to people pertaining to getting to the minutes without
The
listening 3 hours?
indexing, no. And the way that the video works, they actually have somebody sitting there as we go through our agenda there. So you would have to have a person to physically do that.
Yeah.
And all I do, honestly, is it's through YouTube. I have to convert the file and put it on YouTube. It's the only way that I know how to do it, at least.
Well, again, these, I think, are all the topics that would happen if we have a workshop specifically on communication and how we're going to move forward rather than at this.
Yep, I agree.
But I still think it's worthwhile, maybe not as a special letter if we're going to sort of defer this to a next budget year, but it wouldn't be a bad idea in the next water bill to ask the question of people, would they be more likely to keep up with town business if we had this sort of service? And then we can give it a few months to get the feedback. But again, we could, in upcoming BOCMs, address, or a workshop, address overall communication strategy.
I agree. Yep.
And I'll just say, at the end of the day, after we do everything and we analyze everything, we still will not know whether we're going to be able to increase what we want to increase, which is participation.
Sure.
So the only way we will ever know if this is beneficial or not is to test it out.
But I still think it behooves us to ask our owners ahead of time and see if we do get a bump of interest. As I said, if I saw 10% said we would be more likely or highly likely to attend meetings remotely, because that's what it is, and keep up better, I would say that was a positive.
And I may be cynical, but I will say when people are sitting on their couch looking at their computer, they'll answer that, yes, I'd love it and I'll use it. Whether that's accurate or not, I can't tell you, but I'm sure that people will say, yes, I like that idea, I'll use it.
Maybe.
Do you want me to ask the question in some shape, form, or fashion to the public at large, whether it be an email blast or through a special mailing in the water bill? Or not?
Sure.
I'd say probably the least expensive way, if it's putting in the water bill with a note rather than a separate mailing, that's
Yeah, I
$1,500,
think-
$2,000 to mail somebody something.
Pat just mentioned in the next water bill,
And
right?
just do it in the next water bill if we're not going to make a decision for this upcoming budget on this. You can do it, and if you can just ask, are you a full-time resident? Are you an owner, not full-time resident, and see what we get out of it.
But that makes the question, are we going to put it off to the next budget year, or are we going to put the $27,000 into this budget year?
Well, that's
Okay, as I just said, I agree with Peter that this could be part of an overall, what is our communication strategy moving forward, that we would make a priority for the upcoming rest of the year, which does say we basically are going to put it off. And either you put it off until the next budget, or you put it in this year's budget and say, however, we are not going to act on it until the new calendar year.
And putting that in the water bill too would be what I consider to be a sampling, because it would only go to the residents, it wouldn't go to property owners, all property owners.
No, the water bill goes to,
even they have to pay water bills.
Okay,
it may go to the
So it goes to the
property
24.
manager.
Yeah.
okay.
It may go to the property manager too, depending on how they.
Right.
I mean, we can put it in the budget and just say it's not until the next calendar year, pending our communication plan decisions and feedback from our owners. You know, we can make that notation. And then basically what we're saying is we can kill it if we end up saying we're not getting the response we thought we would get in favor.
We put in the budget as a placeholder too. You know,
Okay.
if it's
But by
something else,
definition, it's in next year's
before we
budget.
run. Yep.
Yeah, but
We're not asking for it this year's budget.
Right?
We wouldn't do it this.
And if you don't do it, you don't do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
If you tell us that's a dumb thing, so it's in the budget, you get some extra money to spend this year.
Or we want to do something different. We discover something different.
The board
Yeah,
makes
fair
a
enough.
decision.
Put it in.
or,
But
These numbers should be okay.
or, or
not pretty,
you
yeah.
truncate the program and return it to fund balance.
Right, could do that too.
I mean, you could do that. You decide to not do it and
Well, if you don't want to spend it, you put it back in fund.
put it back in fund balance.
It might be,
Okay, I got enough guidance on that one. I'm good as far as my preamble, and Mr. Mayor, you're probably ready to go with Andy. I forgot something, I gotta go retrieve something from upstairs, so
I'll be right back.
Well, we are again. The overview of this packet's pretty simple because we had a pretty detailed presentation last time of what everybody's wish lists were, and I was told to put them in a layout to where you guys could see on the side the numbers. So we did that. We're gonna do overview. We're gonna do the show you the budget schedule, and then we're gonna do an by-fund overview. We have most of the department heads here. Jeremy obviously is preoccupied. So if you guys, when we go through this, if you have any questions, you can direct them to me, and then I can direct them, or however we can just kind of work through it as we go. Because, like I said, I've already told you everything that they want. So. The budget schedule, we have one, this is the 21st, and then next Thursday, the 28th, we have another one at 10. We did take out that one June meeting, but other than that, everything is still the same.
Yeah, for my fellow colleagues, I'll be absent on the 28th on some minor surgery.
Good luck.
Yep.
So we'll start with the general fund. You'll see that we have the revenues versus expenses. You have your summary sheet as well that kind of gives you both the revenues and expenses, and you can see the difference. Those are pages 8 through 16. So really, you've seen these before. The only thing that has changed so far in the revenues, we got a preliminary number back from the county for our tax base. And it's only a little bit lower than the number that I gave you last time, so it did not really change the 2.8 number with the 22 cents. So that is still sort of the same. The second change that I can say for revenues is that, oh, no, that's not revenues, sorry.
we stayed at 22 cents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the value went up. I'm surprised it's a little bit over, you said?
Well, I'm sorry, what?
You said it's a little bit over than what you estimated?
It's a little bit under. We estimated an 8.89 increase in the tax base.
Oh, okay.
And then we got a number back and it was just a little bit lower, so it didn't really change the amount.
Okay, so it did go up.
Yeah. So, but again, that might change later when we get,
Sure.
we get a feedback every few months. So if you have any questions on the revenues, they're pretty much the same as you saw last time. He explained to you about the miscellaneous revenue, and that was sales tax. And if everybody is okay, we can move on to the governing body expenses. And the only change there, I guess I'm keeping in the live streaming for now. And then the only change at the bottom, the transfer to BPAR and the Beach Nourishment Fund, I actually changed those to represent the tax number that I put in there, the 5 cents and the 2 cents, because last time it was the old tax number. So I updated those transfers at the bottom, 2 lines. Do you have any questions about that?
did it before, but, so if I'm reading the transfer to DPAR fund from 1718, 806, 5, down to 1819, 564, and 1920, what's the,
The 1920 is the 5 cents of the proposed tax rate,
Okay,
and then
that's
the 2
the-
cents of the proposed tax rate. That's how y'all split it up last year.
okay,
The accommodation.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I don't know if that's gonna wanna be how you go forward, but that's just how you did it last year, so that's how I broke it up.
cool, thank you. Oh, awesome, thanks.
Mr. Freard asked for an inclusion of an organizational chart, and
Thank you.
that's, I forgot to bring it down, sorry about that. The page one is, I guess is the macro departmental level chart. The I test chart on the second page is, 3 levels down every single position, so that's what that is.
Do you have any more questions, or we can move on to admin? Admin hasn't really changed from the last meeting. I just put a note at the top that the salaries reflect the 5 employees that get paid out of that fund.
The group insurance has gone up, huh?
Yeah, I have a question on, and it goes throughout the rest of the expenses. Group insurance looks like it went up about 10 or 11%.
It went up 10.75.
That's the initial quote that we got, the most recent one. We haven't gone back out and solicited
Okay.
for additional quotes. What we're trying to do there is to show you what we got
Do
so
you do that
far.
annually? Do you go to get a
Oh,
new
yeah,
provider?
absolutely,
Is
absolutely.
it part of Obamacare or not?
Yeah.
Or is that a bad question?
Oh, well, I mean, you mean the increase? Is it?
No, the whole program, but how do we deal with it? I don't know how we deal with it.
It's changed since Obamacare. It used to be a la carte, so that I could, we could pick and choose if we wanted to change, say, the co-pays, or if we wanted to bring the deductibles up. We used to be able to manipulate it, but since Obamacare, we're not able to do that anymore. So they just have different plans. They've got like gold, platinum, diamond. So we just have to, we're not able, it's not as easy, honestly. We can't change anything. So this is just the quote of the same plan that we had this year.
And do we have a pretty clear handle on how much of this is employee-related versus family-related?
Yes. Yes. I'm actually working on that now to give to David. But from what I've looked at, it looks like it's pretty much just all across the board went up 10.75%.
But I mean, as a percentage, if I was asking, how much of, it's about 15,000 to 16,000 per person, healthcare is. How much of that is family-related and how much is employee-related? Do we know?
That's different because of Obamacare also. It used to be, my family is on the plan. So there used to be a straight cost for my family. It's not like that anymore. If there's another person who has family and they're older than me, they're going to get a higher charge because people who are older get a higher charge. So it's really all over the place. So it's hard to say. What it is right now is the town pays for 80% of the family and the employee pays for 20%. So I just take the charge that each employee is charged because it is by employee, and 80% is going to the town and 20% is going to the staff. So I can't say who went up, and everybody went up in every area is what it looks like to me.
I think your question is how much of the total insurance pot is attributable to family insurance coverage.
Exactly.
We'll find that out and bring it back to you.
I think it's meaningful to the board to understand that as we look forward. I've seen this before where healthcare all of a sudden took off and it becomes the biggest thing in the budget for companies.
Well, what we normally see is year 3, everybody buys in low on year 1, and then They
Like TV.
they kind of troll you along the second year, and then third year, they set the hook. So, and that's why each year that we do go out and solicit for that, and we have established, quotables, so we can do that. But what we did here, we just wanted to bring this to you in terms of what the current information is.
What year is this for us then? Very
If you go out, is this renewable every year then, David? Or do you do a 3-year contract? Because if you go out-
Each year,
Okay.
each year,
And I'm assuming employees are 100% covered by the,
yes. Did she cover like the remarks?
The next page is police expenses. I went over last time what Jeremy has requested. I can maybe speak to what he would like, but I'm not gonna speak for him. So if you have any questions, I can do my best.
So budgetarily hiring a police officer is about $100,000 expense.
No.
Because you gotta equip them.
The co- yeah.
You gotta-
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
total-
yeah.
a total, not
The new
100,000.
It's taxes,
Uniforms
tags, titles, uniforms,
Yes.
bullets,
Total.
bullets, yeah.
That's just
all-
first year.
Yeah,
It's a
But
package.
does it go down that much the next year?
well, you don't have to buy a vehicle.
Vehicles last, what, 3 years?
7 years or 70,000 miles.
Are you
is the
keeping them that
policy.
long?
We try to.
And their uniforms, they're wearing them every day. How long are their uniforms?
That depends, but what Jeremy wants to do is he wants to retool,
Fair enough.
he
Fair
wants to do some image things.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes fair enough. Yeah.
Continuing on, inspections. They have three full-time positions. They're anticipating their training going up a little bit to get some more continuing education. The 30,000, the increase in that is their land use plan, and then sometimes when Tim is away, which is rare, we sometimes have to use that for a fill-in inspector to come and help out. But
We also, that line item also includes, like, if we need engineering to assist me with anything, we pay it out of that, like we did with the stormwater, or sometimes I have engineers that, want to throw their stamp at me like I'm wrong, so I'll go out and hire an engineer myself to either prove me right or wrong. But the idea is to keep the public safe.
And then the new expense this year is Rhonda they're requesting a new vehicle. Her vehicle is pretty old. So
Right, but that is something that was deferred last year.
it was
actually-
deferred last
So
year.
it's a year past when it's been asked for.
Well, it's like double the years and double the mileage of what your plan is now. She's had it since 2006. It goes on the beach every day. We've been spending an average of probably $3,000 more for maintenance every year. And last year, it cost a penny. Remember, we left a high maintenance in there, and we did end up using it. But that truck is on the beach every day. We've got rusting in the quarter panels now. It's coming through.
I will comment on the revenue side of this. Whenever we retread, we dispose of those assets, we don't budget for that revenue. It just comes in and is counted. We don't budget for the sale on it. We just sell it and then we get the money for it, and it goes into fund balance for appropriation as may need be.
If I could just back up 1 second, I don't know if you know the answer, but under the police expenses, they have $32,000 for uniforms. And then you need that, we have $100,000 for 2 vehicles and new uniforms.
Yeah, when he gave me his budget, he had both of those together, and they shouldn't be together, so I split them separately. So that's just an old memo in there, so that the uniforms are just moved up to the next line.
Okay, so quick math,
Yeah.
that's $3,500 for police officer for uniforms.
I think that's for all of them.
No, you're
No,
just
35,
per-
okay, yeah,
It's
sorry. I
3,500
heard
per.
35,000.
That's some fancy uniforms.
No, I'm just wondering.
I can't speak to the price of them, but that's what he quoted me.
Okay, but I think,
Well, as paying their uniform bill, it's not just like a pants and shirts, it's their belts, their, all the tactical stuff that goes with
Maybe
it.
bulletproof.
Yeah,
vests,
bulletproof
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it's not just a pants and a shirt that they're thinking it's gonna cost that much. It's, you know, if you see the belts, they've got all that stuff on them, and you
Yeah,
have to pay
I
for
know.
all of that, so.
Now,
It has
I know all about it. That's why I'm asking.
Maybe the thing on this one to do is at next week, if Jeremy's here, is just to ask Jeremy to walk us through it.
That's all.
It's difficult without him here.
Tim, your maintenance is gone, it's still 7,500 when you get a new vehicle.
That's because I'm driving one that's 10 years old. It goes on the beach every
I
day.
know, but you're getting rid of one that's,
I'm getting rid of one that's 16 years old, and I'm driving one that's 10 years old.
okay, so.
so the new truck is for Rhonda, but you're still driving the old one.
I'm driving my old one. Me and Rhonda don't share a vehicle.
I understand that. You drive the little truck.
I drive that little
How
truck.
many miles are on that?
It's got 60,000 on it now because but it goes on the beach. I actually every year I would take it home, put it on my lift, and try to coat the underside to keep it from going bad. The other evening I took it home to coat the underside, and it's rusted. You know what I mean? I've done what I could.
You
Are the brake
understand my
lines not
logic.
rusty?
You have two old vehicles, you're getting one new one, and you still have, the same.
Right. I understand, but what I'm saying is that it's just like anything else. I don't know what we're gonna run into. We don't have a new vehicle, you know what I mean? And if something happens, like a transmission, I tell you what, these four-wheel drive vehicles, we spent $3,500 just like that last year on Rhonda's because that sand got into her hubs out there, you know what I mean? And I'm sure it's because the seals went bad, but it don't take much. You can drive one of these trucks one time on the beach and on a hot day, and they're already overheating.
Well, I'll speak something to that for you. A new Model 4 pickup truck that says spark plugs run you about $800.
Yeah.
You sat there and looked, you used to get
Spark plug?
that spark plug, you in $600 to $800 on those trucks like I've got. They sunk down in the head and they take fear forward.
But it's
And
not-
Wilmington was $600 something, and if it ring off, each one that breaks off in there is an additional $64 for the special tap tool that you have to get it out of there with. They counter sink down into the manifold about that deep.
Well, the whole idea is for us not to be down. You know what I mean? The inspection departments cannot be down. Their statutory law doesn't allow us to even be out more than 2.5 days on an inspection. So we can't be down. And so I recognize that it didn't change, although we are getting a new vehicle. But my concern is that the one that we're keeping is really nowhere near the quality of the truck as the one we kept so long.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think what I'm hearing is we may see that you need a new truck next year.
Yeah, I think you're going to see it.
That's
But
fine.
Rhonda's truck serves more than one function for our department. I think y'all know that. Y'all used it yourselves. My truck serves one purpose. The vehicle I get, I hate to downsize or downgrade myself, but the vehicle I get is utilitarian only. It doesn't serve any other purpose. You know what I mean? Rhonda's vehicle would be used for traveling, training, you know what I mean, and that kind of stuff. Right now, I go to town, I drive my own vehicle. I'm not driving that Ford Ranger, I promise you. The tires like to go that way. You know what I mean?
And that same truck that she's driving, I purchased it. I got mine the same year. And at that time, mine was $17,000, and I think hers was $18,000. And you can figure that's what, 19 years, I mean 15. So that ain't much over $1,000 a year, but that going up. I wish they were still that price.
Are we tracking the maintenance costs in those later years and maybe find out that it'd be cheaper overall to go ahead and...
That's why we went with a 770 protocol on that policy, is to look at it there. I mean, that's where we arrived at with that type of analysis.
Yeah, I can't remember if I cut it or if y'all cut that truck last year, but I think I took it. Did I take it out? I think I took it, yeah. Try to get one more year out of it.
On the procurement of vehicles, we buy those whenever feasible, and the preferable means is to buy those from the Department of Administration on state contract. And that's what we get, the pricing's just better, you know, it shortcuts the whole procurement process. But there is a state process that we have to go through.
I'll add something on that. The community college up here, we're in the process of buying a vehicle for the new president. Our previous president was a little tiny lady that drove one of those little tiny foreign-made sedans. Our new president is a guy a little bit bigger than me, and he can barely get in. So we had to buy a new vehicle for him. And I didn't mean that to sound other than factual.
I have a husband who frequently can't drive the car I have, so I understand the problem.
So here's my point. He went to work the first of the year, and here we are, almost the end of March, and we're still going to have to wait another month or two before we get his vehicle through the state contract. So again, my point is, if his truck dies and we go state contract, it might take us a few months to get one because of the process and availability. So keep your fingers crossed and hope it keeps running. Anyway.
In the streets department, this is basically the same. It's got half of two positions. They're also requesting a new truck to replace a 2009 vehicle. And then at the very bottom, you can see the very big one is paving half of Brunswick Avenue West, about $127,000.
What page are you on now?
Oh, I'm sorry, 15.
You're on 50. So I have a question on the street paving project's cost. Is that, we gonna be able to do half of Brunswick Avenue for $127,000?
That's the engineer's
Are we
estimate.
not doing the major change of the
That-
streeting then?
That's what we're doing.
Including it?
That's the engineer's estimate. That was what was
To me, it
briefed.
seems incredibly cheap
Yeah.
Well, that's what was briefed to y'all back in
for the nature
September.
of work.
That's just the north side of the road, right?
No, that's half of the length of the road, not just one lane. It's half the length of the
And is
road.
this the half that doesn't need as much work, or?
Just the west, half of the west end,
Yeah, that needs it.
from here to,
That was the
Excuse me if I
discussion.
don't believe the number.
But that wasn't the report, and it's that doing half of it to make sure it ends up as robust as they say before committing to do the other half.
we're doing this half, right, from here to,
From the water tank to High Point Street? Is that what you're talking
Whichever half we consider to be the worst half. I mean,
Not that, not that.
It was here to there.
to,
I can,
That was the worst.
here to
If
Roger.
I had the same thing happen, it's probably flip a quarter about which end is the worst.
this is the direction that y'all provided at the September meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
And I can give you point-to-point reference on what was contained in the engineer's report, but generally it's from here to High Point. The second half of the road is here east. So it's half the distance of Brunswick Avenue here. In this case, it's referred to as Brunswick Avenue West.
But are we correcting the standing water issues and the curvature of the bumps? and-
Yes.
Wow.
The bird baths.
Somebody gets a medal if you do it for $127,000.
What did you just say, David? You said, I thought it was only west.
That's
Okay.
half of Brunswick Avenue. Is
No, but I thought you said the whole was west and only half of the west.
Chris, have you got that report?
I don't have that report with me,
I'm pretty sure
but the way I read it,
It's what was in the
the
report.
way I read it,
The note
Brunswick
is
Avenue
half
West
of
is from
west.
here to High
It's only
Point
half of
Street,
west.
and it would be half of that distance.
Half of west.
Half of west.
That's the way I read it.
Fine.
But I will say too, that's a rough estimate, because it's like $255,000, I think he had there for the total project, but you still won't know till we go out for bids. It may come in a little higher, we may have to do some adjustments, but that's the only number we got to go off of now.
And we
Remind
might,
us, when is it, when's that gonna happen?
Well, the way our schedule usually works, Peter, is right now, we've got some bids out for Sandsburg, Sandon, and Sandpiper. So that goes out for bids, we'll probably have something on it for our April meeting as far as approving that, and usually the paving will start in May, so it would probably be the same schedule next year. That's the way we've tried to work it over the years, and it's worked out pretty good so far.
Try to let it heat up a little bit in the springtime, but before Memorial Day.
Where does Brunswick West begin?
Right here.
I've always considered right here Rothschild Street, anything
Okay,
that
so
way.
we're doing half of that distance.
Huh?
We're just doing half of that distance.
That's the way I read it, but I will, when I come back next time, I will have to report it page for page, and you'll see if you see the same thing I'm
Other
seeing.
than in front of Peter's house, it's gonna stay the same.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's right.
Chris, the salaries, is the new person counted in here?
It's not in the streets department where I want a new person, and it's
Okay.
actually on the water part of it, and we get over that in a minute.
Okay.
It's good as there.
Sorry, I was looking, I have that report, so I was looking to see if I could find an answer to your question. It's a quite extensive piece of paper.
What page are we on now, Mandy?
I guess we're moving on to 16.
16.
So he's requesting some more safety gear. The rollback is, we have a 59.4. I guess that stays the same. And then 353 subscriptions. What was this subscription?
That's appropriate for the beach.
Subscriptions. It's about 353 we have right now.
So from the upgrade of the cost, have we seen a decrease in usage or an increase in usage? Went from 53 to 84 or something?
8248.
Okay, so has that affected the number of people that use it?
I don't think so. I think people are just renewing. Margaret, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it hasn't jumped higher or lower.
No, there's only been a handful that canceled. We still have a few that have not
We've had
renewed,
some new ones come on.
and we've had new ones come on, so.
I think it stayed right between 300 and 350 over the last year or so. Not much.
And do we know, are most of the blue cans from rental units?
Did somebody answer that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Guess not.
We have that inventory,
Right.
but I don't know what that rack up is.
I don't know the exact number.
Okay, I'll move on to the water sewer fund, which is pages 18 through 22. I did put a couple of notes beside in the water sewer revenue funds, because sometimes we get asked questions about what the revenues are. You probably already know what they are, but I just put it in there anyway. And we did not put these numbers in last time, but I went and put them in this time for the water capacity charge and the sewer capacity charge, which is related to the HB legislation. As of what we've gotten so far, I just sort of made an estimate about what we might be getting back. I'm not sure how you guys are going to want to move forward with that. I'm not sure if you guys are going to change that or not. So I just put those in there as placeholders for now to move to our capital reserve funds.
That's the $870,000 and $800,000 figures?
No, there's, on page 19, there's a water capacity charge. I have it at, we had it last year, was it 173, 760? And we've only gotten 13 back this year, so I just budgeted at 15. Because y'all changed it in the middle of the year.
She's talking about the system development
The
fees.
system development fees,
The
yeah.
interim fees,
Second line.
it's based on the interim fees that were set,
Yeah,
that we're supposed to address.
right, correct. So those will probably need to be addressed, and so I can get better numbers, or if you want to stay the same, I'll just need to know that.
Just to help me out here, the 173 wasn't what we actually received, it was what was anticipated in receipt. And because of the revision, we brought that down roughly $160,000. Okay.
Help me with that line above that, water use charges. I mean, that's just basically the fee for water, but why would we go, we're expecting to go down over the last 2 budget cycles?
Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, I think some conservation's been happening, so.
Well, also that's a projected number, but, you know, it's kind of hard to track when you sit there and think. I've thought more about it this year than I've ever thought. You know, somebody says, well, you know, we've got 35 new houses that were added this year. But you got to look, a lot of those houses where they tore an old house down, and what they put back got more efficient toilet fixtures and
But I
stuff
see
like
the
that.
trend is up, if you look,
And
you
then-
know,
Yeah, and then also too, we put a lot of second meters in, and when you put second meters in, then that charge changes on the sewer side, you know. So they both tie
It could
together.
be more, but it's a conservative number
Yeah,
based on
yeah,
all the
but
new
the trend is up.
construction.
but, you know, those things that you just mentioned have happened over the last couple of years, but.
Yeah.
okay. I, so conservative.
I'm thinking, but also too, and I could be wrong, I don't think February's revenue was posted on this right here when this was run. I don't think, Margaret, but I could be wrong.
Treasury don't come in until this.
Yeah. And I know it ain't a whole lot to the equation too, but when you think back on September, for probably maybe a week and a half, we weren't even under normal operation when we shut the island down, so that kind of knocks it back a little.
Yeah, just, you know, you look at 17-18 was 883, the actual is 894, so then you did a budget 897 for 19. And I don't know what the percentage is for the actual, for year to date. but-
What we try to do in the piece that you don't see is that there are several years previous to that. And on this particular consumptive, we actually try to do a weighting moving average projection that rolls that. So there's some math involved in that before you get down to that's the number. The good piece about it is from the budgetary side of it, whenever water use charges actually exceed the budget, the revenues go up too. So, I mean, you get to cover your costs. There's a direct one-for-one revenue-related item there.
And we haven't hit, a lot of summer months yet too, so this could very well, change. I can look at it and say, hey, we've gotten a lot more back than we thought.
Yeah, that's why I don't,
Yeah.
to date, who knows? Right?
If we're inside, comparative to other locations, realistically, if you're inside 15%, you're pretty good.
I think it's gonna be pretty close to target what was last year, just looking at it.
Yeah.
I have a question. If I may, the water capacity charge at 173,000, is that what we collected, or is that what y'all projected?
That's
Last
the,
year.
That was projected before the change.
Okay. Because I know we didn't collect out just.
If you guys are done with the revenues, we can move on to page 20 to the water admin expenses.
I want to inject something in here also, though, is that if you actually look at, because we hadn't done the this, in the water fund, this particular line is gonna be about $1.5 million out because we haven't, and that's primarily related to the lift station improvements for 4 on the expense side, and the fund balance appropriation to pay for that is conspicuously absent, so that's not in here. So when you see you got $1.5 million out, well, that's what that is.
So are we on 20 now? Or?
Yes.
I have a question with retirement. Is there an overall retirement increase this year, or was this just a unique to that department?
We've had a lot of change over, like, in each department, actually. We've had a couple people retire. We've had new 2 admins come in. So each department has actually had different salary changes in the last few months. So some of the numbers look a little lower or higher depending on, we reclass some salaries, and then we've had some that have come in lower because we've had new hires.
So if you have people retiring, the number would go down because the new hires would be lesser, right?
Correct.
But the overall, the increase in the retirement across the board is mostly attributable to the fact that the retirement system contribution was increased by a point, and that's a mandatory. There, it's a point something, but that's the driving factor behind that. The LGERS contribution rate.
And the police is higher, actually, too. So.
They have a different system.
But the retirement last year was $775, and this year it's $895. So. You guys ready to move on to page 21? The salaries there is 6 plus the new employee that Chris is requesting for water operations. You can see down at close 3/4 to the bottom, the 1.14 is the debt service on our sewer capacity.
Okay, that remark there is incorrect. There are not 6 employees in the water department that are attributed there, okay?
Because there's half of 2 salaries come out of the
Right.
street.
That's true, that was my bad.
What's that?
There's 2 half positions that come out of the streets department, which make 1 there. So I only have, well, if I had everybody on duty now, I'd only have 6 altogether, so
What's the right number for that line?
that would be 5 employees on that line.
That includes the new one.
And I may have to backpedaling, and I hate to be wishy-washy. The figures that I'd use for that was figuring maybe hiring somebody at the $12 an hour man. And I think the thing to do is probably bump that up to more like a $15 an hour man. Because I really need to see if I can get some more help in here training on water and sewer other than trying to lowball. I know to be able to get somebody that's got any kind of qualifications, that's about what it's going to take to get them here.
And that's competitive within the area?
Huh?
That's competitive within the area, right? That
Well,
the increase from 12 to 15?
people like to talk about it, Brunswick County and stuff, that's what I'm getting, and that's providing you bring somebody in there and you give them 6 months and they get their certifications and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
right.
I can tell you, with me and my construction company trying to hire somebody at $12 an hour, they just laugh at you.
Well, what's gonna happen is, $12 an hour, man, you're gonna get somebody other than eat some beer and some cigarettes for Saturday night. On Saturday night, when I'm down there with a pump tore up or something, and he's over at wherever he likes to hang out on the weekend, he's gonna tell me to kiss his rear end, and I'm gonna still be down there by myself trying to get this place going.
There you go.
I think you
Get a
got
storm coming in here,
Yeah.
even adding a new position, we are stretched to the max with a storm coming in.
I think your point is well taken.
Yeah.
So you're replacing me?
Recalculate.
Yeah,
But
it
I'm
doesn't-
gonna
it
give
doesn't-
it a try.
doesn't have much of a
I've never
change.
seen the beat of trying to find
Yeah. Good.
qualified help in my life this day and time. There's so many jobs up and down the road where they don't have benefits and they just look at that hourly amount and they think, well, you know, I'm getting rich here and I don't need to go to the doctor and stuff and this is where I'm gonna be. To me, it's a different world from what it used to be 20 years ago.
Yeah, much-
That's about a $12,000 increase, right, Chris?
Huh?
So that's about a $12,000 increase from what you have there now.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
To be figurative.
But getting somebody for $12 an hour anymore, I mean,
No,
I'm
I'm-
yard guys, $40 an hour, they have no skills. You
Yeah.
guys gotta have skill.
Well, see, that's another thing that's kind
And
of unique right
motivation.
here, you know. If somebody goes to Brunswick Academy and they start off as an entry-level water mechanic, all they do is they work on water. I mean, they go down there and might work on a fire hydrant or something like that. And the way I'm laid out here, I don't have a strict street department or water department and then a sewer department off the side. I have to have people that's willing to do everything across the board.
Cross-trained.
And some people like that, and some people don't. You know, if you end up getting an ex-county employee, and he's used to just sitting over with his feet kicked up on the dash, so, well, you know, that ain't my job, be down there fixing a pot on the side of the road. You know? So that's what I have to deal with. Here, I've got a box of hats, and when I get in the morning, I just grab one and swing it that way right there, and they're supposed to accept it and smile and go on. You know, and I've made do with it for years, but it's getting hard to find people that are willing to do that. You know, a lot of people like to play dumb and they don't know anything. If they think it's outside the realm of what's expected of them, you know, they shouldn't have to do it. But I'll challenge anybody to get a job description for just a basic or a laborer in our department and look at all the details that a laborer should know. And from my perspective, if I knew what was on that paper and was a professional and all of it, I would not be applying for a laborer's position. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if somebody calls in sick, you don't need to be looking around, you just need to say, you go,
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, good.
Yeah, $3 is only a little over 6,000 for salary, so. But then you gotta add other stuff.
Okay, fully loaded. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm good.
2,041.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Do you guys have any questions on 22? You can see the lift station 3 mitigation on there. And then the 2 debt service payments.
I've got something I'll bring up and speak to while we're at it there. Up ahead of that right there, we see equipment purchase water. It's got truck, GPS equipment. Well, naturally, you know, everybody knows what a truck is, and I need one there. It's probably over about 150,000 miles that was replacing. But the GPS equipment, that's actually some equipment that will help us out in a lot of different ways. I want to get Chris Stanley to do some GPS or GIS mapping of some of our valve pits and sewer lines and things of that nature. And if we have a storm and we get wrapped up in sand and we come back trying to find all this stuff, that could be difficult. And also, anything that we do now that we turn in for reimbursement, one of the painless things is they want GPS coordinates for each location. We've got about 1,500 valve pits on this island. And for example, if I send somebody out on foot and we check every one of those valve pits, they want a coordinates for every valve pit. I mean, it's just, that would give us the ability to do that. Plus,
Let me interrupt you if I may. We have, you and I and Dave and several others through the years have talked about having that availability
yes, sir, I'm sure have.
whenever the storm washes over the oceanfront dune and covers everything up. You can't find homeowners shut off valve.
Yeah, when you go back and it looks like a desert and you just don't have any bearings at all, it's a difficult task.
Did that just possibility go away or what happened?
That's what
No.
this is.
The possibility didn't go away. We had actually started some of that mapping, but
So what's different about this conversation than what we've had in the past?
The difference about this conversation right here is I'm purchasing some different equipment, and Chris Stanley, the surveyor, is actually gonna go out and do some of the collecting the points and stuff and do the entries and then help me get straight to where we need to be.
For those of you that have never seen what it looks like after we've had a washover, and all the driveways are covered with a foot or 2 feet or 3 feet of sand, that means everything looks like the beach strand out there. And you got water pouring out of the houses because the water was left on. And all the other issues. And the maintenance department is just at a loss because they can't find anything to shut things off. The property management companies can't find the valves because they're covered up. I mean, this is something that we have needed for years, years, and years. As long as we don't have a storm, it's not so bad, but boy, I have to tell you.
I don't,
Was it 89, was it 89 that was the worst one?
I worked here in '89, but I do remember some in the mid-'90s where we had some small sections that got sanded over, and
Yeah.
I do remember about '96, we came back one time and every shower and dock on the ocean front here had the showers broke off and there's water spraying everywhere. And 12 o'clock that night we were still walking around hunting meter boxes to cut them off with. So I have had a little bit of experience in that, but also I mentioned it to David and we spoke about it briefly, but it may be possible that we can find some of the funding to maybe start and incorporate some of this now, because the more of this that we can get in place before storm season, it would be a plus.
And I hate to even say this because it impacts me, but it is the right thing. Whenever Tim, as-built survey is done, why wouldn't it be a good idea to require that surveyor to put that GPS location on that water meter and shut off? Why couldn't that be incorporated in the requirements?
We could. I mean, if that's what the town wants to do, but they charge for everything they do, so you'll be incurring a charge
Well, that's what I'm saying, it hurts
on
me.
the property owner. But yeah, that we could require that if you made it part of the policy.
Do y'all understand what I'm
Yeah, that's
saying?
a great
Yes.
idea. That's a great idea.
And we may
Because,
put
you know, we're
down-
doing it, we're using it, yeah. That makes sense.
Those, we use those as-bills for zoning requirements to show that they meet the zoning requirements.
But the technology is here also to be able to control the turnoff valves,
That's a great idea.
like just remotely, right?
No, that's
I mean, we
different.
can run nuclear sites from a distance. We
Well,
can
you
turn on
can,
a
well, you
little-
can get this where you can do that, but you ain't gonna get what we got. That's a price tag to do it.
That's the
We have
next
to
step.
upgrade the meters or,
Part of the problem with beach houses compared to other residential dwellings as far as water and that kind of thing is that although the same requirements are required at these homes, they get covered up for freeze protection and that kind of stuff. But every home is supposed to have a shut-off within 3 feet of that foundation. It's one of the things that's on my checklist when I go out to check. There's not only a shut-off at the street, but there's one at the house. Now, there's a leak between there and the house, you have to find the one at the street. But if the house is leaking, there's always one at the house. It's required, has been required since 1975.
Does it show it on the plans, Tim?
Well, we don't have them put it on the as-built, but that could be also on the as-built because you're not going to put internal services on an as-built for a structure. But and that's not required. The state don't require it, but they do require that shut-off to be there. And so what happens is they get boxed in, they get closed in. Some of the older houses have them added, but they're also closed in and boxed in. So when you look for them, you can't find them. But they're supposed to be accessible. They're there when we look at it, you know what I mean? But that don't mean that when you go back you can find it, you know what I mean? Somebody may have hidden it for whatever.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of houses when the people didn't have a clue where none of that.
So Tim, are you agreeing that what the mayor is saying?
I'm
is
agreeing
gonna
totally with what the mayor says.
be- Do you need anything else?
Everywhere that I know of has GIS locations on everything. And one of the fastest way to get locations for those shutoff valves and for the sewer taps, those pits, was that we could have it added. We could write an ordinance saying that the as-bills need to, we could put it into some portion of our ordinance. Because our as-bills are actually clarifying that they met the requirements of the ordinance under the zoning code. But there's nothing in there that says that your that your water has to be 3 feet off the property line or there. If we add that, then we can make it part of the as-bills with those locations.
Okay, so we have to update the ordinance then?
That's right.
Okay.
About sewer
Okay, good.
cleanouts.
Bring that forward, yeah.
Include them one,
Sewer cleanouts, we could also have them identify the sewer cleanouts.
because that would be a plus too, when we run that hunting cats and stuff, so if we know where to look.
That's a great idea.
I just got a couple comments on that.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. The entry that Chris has got in there is the purchase of equipment. We need to go back to the communications line, because that's the IT line, is what that is. That's not just telephones. And scale exactly what is going to be the back shop cost of hosting that data, whether it's a separate in-house computer system or if it's going to be a hosted service. I don't know. I think that's just a procurement cost. So we need to make sure that we capture now that we got the data, we need to capture how we're going to handle it, because it's not going to do us any good if we've gone on a hard drive in the building and the building's gone. So we're probably going to have that data hosted. My point is that there's an administrative tail to the procurement of that service. Second piece, whenever we have done FEMA projects, one of the details that they always come back and we have to go back out and manually procure it is the GPS data points. So we actually have to go out. If we've got those front loaded, especially on the utilities and infrastructure side, whether it's a fire hydrant, a storm drain, a sewer valve pit, or whatever, we've got those already, and it's not a hang up, because sometimes that kind of thing takes 2 months to go, and you've already submitted and you have to come back. So that's a good thing. And there's a number of items like just been bandied about, in addition to just the sewer valve pit locations and the cleanouts that we can secure by having that GPS locating service and equipment in-house. And ultimately, what it does is it demarks the right-of-way. And that's what we want to be able to get to, because now with the technology involved in a bulldozer, you can directly upload the GPS coordinates to a bulldozer, and the bulldozer will set the grade, including with elevations, and you can just go clear to right-of-way with millimeter precision on the operation of that bulldozer. So, you got to have that data though first, and that's going to be critical to the amount of time that you're able to reconstitute the island whenever a major hurricane event happens, God forbid. But anyway.
And there's a contracted service part of that too, like
Is that
funded for Chris Stanley too, David, that
Okay.
we have to have too, which if it goes to the number we got there right now, we should
Are
be
you
able
going
to.
to outsource the data input?
Which line are we looking
I was just saying that we've got to make sure.
at? No, not that. The cost of putting them on the outfit.
Chris.
It's the equipment purchase water, 3 down on page 22.
It's on the truck.
Says truck, comma, GPS.
Read that.
What's equipment?
Okay.
What was the question?
I guess
He wanted to know what line you
it's
want.
$46,000 when we have $131,000 in this year. How can we do it for less than?
What are you talking about?
I guess I'm a little confused. I'm looking at the numbers, and if you're asking for 46,000, the year before we had 138,000 on that line.
That's equipment.
Well, that was different things that we bought, and then we're not buying the same stuff again this year.
Okay,
Last year, that was 2 trucks, and
That's
that was 2 trucks and like some other things.
Ground penetrating
Yeah.
radar.
And a broom and a tractor broom, like so. different
Are we comfortable with that 46K? Or do
Well,
we need to go back and look
from
at
the
it?
estimates that I've got, I'm pretty comfortable with that part of it. Like I said, the other part of it is the contracted services and stuff Dave was talking about on the communications. We might have to backpedal a little
We'll
bit.
just
We'll do the back shot and add to it. I'll come back to it.
Great idea.
Another good thing, if you look down there towards the bottom of the page, I know everybody's probably picked that out, that's $660,000.
Right.
I've been looking at that spreadsheet for a long time.
Yeah, that's worth,
That's when I really realized what $1 million was, when I seen that pay schedule for that, and Bye-bye.
We need to look at, though, on the revenue side, because our enabling legislation that allows us to assess the 497.30 is specific in its articulation of what that money can be used for. Some of that is here in addition to the big payment of $900,000 for the county sewer debt. So we need to double check on the revenue side what we've programmed into there, because if that's we can keep that current, but next year you're going to have to drop it. Not in this budget, but just I want to register that. Yeah, we're going to double check that just to make sure.
But how does that apply to the new updates? Is that revenue, and you know, the maintenance, blah, 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 new updates on the sewer system? I'd look at it with that in mind as well, right? I mean, I know it's servicing debt.
Well, you're funding those mitigation measures basically from unobligated water and sewer fund balance. So those are escrowed funds. It's taking it from the SOC.
That money right there, David, I could be wrong, but that was actually the cost of what the pump stations were in the beginning and the collection.
No, that particular line is basically the BB&T notes for the collection lines, not lift stations.
So it's just the collection line part of it.
Still don't know.
You guys ready to move on? So view card. Page 24, this is, I'm pretty sure this is the same as what you saw last. Oh, except for the transfer from general fund, which I changed to the 5 cents from the governing body. And on page 25, I apologize for being so small, but I could not get all of the information on there. Make it any bigger.
Christie,
Yes,
the truck that you use, for example, on Sundays, setting up the concerts, what department is that truck charged to?
This one.
This in
This
this
one.
one.
She took it out last year, and I put it back in this year.
Okay, that was what was confusing me, I guess.
It doesn't have the mileage on it that some of the other folks have, because some of theirs are rather old. And if it comes down to something being cut, I would certainly like to see my counterparts get a truck that are in worse shape before this gets the truck. But it is, as I understand it was before me, it meets our age requirement for our policy we set. It's on the beach a lot. And we are having meetings that we're traveling to more, and so I'm in the spot with Tim in that I'm driving my car, or David's driving his car, or because I won't take it on a long trip at this point. But again, if it comes down to a truck having to go away, I would rather see my counterparts be able to get their vehicles that they need and it be pushed a year.
Yeah, I see David coming back in. I guess what was going through my mind, because the body of the truck and everything that you drive seems to be, look okay. I was just wondering, what would Chris, with the heavy beach strand use and the more construction type work being done with Chris's department, I was just wondering if good thinking to pass your truck on to a beat-up type thing and then get one that y'all could drive on the highway, some kind of sharing or something. I don't know. And I know that you're right with your truck, Tim. I wouldn't go very far with that thing, and the same thing. But it might serve a good purpose with Chris and his construction work. I don't know.
That's it.
Talking about like vehicle transfer, like the Dodge truck, moving to something you would need.
Because I think that the police department, trucks being passed down, that has worked out pretty good, hasn't it? You know,
Yes and no.
yes and no. You don't need 4 doors, do you?
Well, yeah, the 4 doors comes in nice, but I had one there that I tried to recoup, and I ended up spending, that was a mistake, and the other one has been so-so. I mean, it's really all depends, but if you're talking about what you got there, yeah, that'd probably work out good, because, you know, if we add people, I still got to have a form of transportation, and, you know.
But it took us several years for the town to understand that it's better to get rid of a truck before it falls apart.
Right.
Because in the .gov sales, we've done very well. So,
That vehicle's done for a lot more public relations work than you would think of. We do a lot of riding dignitaries up and down the beach, and it would be embarrassing for the truck not to crank, or, you know, it to break down, you know, below the high tide mark on an incoming tide with, you know, Congressman Rouser in the truck.
yeah.
I was embarrassed trying to get everybody fitting what I got, but we done with that.
I guess what I'm saying is just any possibilities of looking at that switching around would make a lot of sense to me.
Christie, is it true that the recreational programs pay for themselves? I see a $15,000 revenue and a $12,000 expense.
We've been doing well in that.
A lot of questions, a lot of people ask that question, obviously.
I understand.
So I'm glad it's,
I'm glad you said what you said, because you may remember the grief that some of us took whenever we hired that position, David.
And also built the facility out here.
That's
with
right.
the
Oh,
pavilion.
yeah, the world was coming to an end at Holden Beach. And now the accolades that are coming from it, you know, are pleasing.
yeah. Well, I didn't go there, but I'm going, you know, they have, you know, all the activities, Mr. Mayor, so they pay for themselves as well, so.
So, thank you for bringing that up.
Not all of them produce revenue,
But
some,
But
it all
overall,
equals out.
yeah.
Good job.
that's right.
I know you do a lot of work trying to get free food donated and things like that, too. I see we got something about the dog park. Dog park doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, and I don't know if we're gonna get to the point that we're having a dog park at the current spot, so we can probably take the maintenance out
I
there
mean,
for this year.
that will be a glaring issue for some people, that we actually have something in there that we can do.
But my understanding is that we had an alternative plan, didn't we, Dave? I mean, we don't want to take the money out if we're going to do something
No, good point.
potentially somewhere else.
Yeah,
Well, the
And
plan
I tell you
is,
what, my phone
Yeah.
has been ringing about that.
I'd suggest
Dog
you leave a
park.
line in, because the intention is to dry up that site and reconstitute a portion of it with a dog park. I just don't know how long it's gonna take to get it to where it needs to be. Remember, we have a year or more to dry up that site.
okay.
So, and-
So that's the,
Yeah, and really that $500 is doggy bags. I mean, that's what that.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, in the dog park over
Along
there.
I thought you meant to spread it out.
Dog waste stations,
Yeah.
you know, that we got that.
If anybody hasn't, have you been to the dog park? Have you seen the dog park, Mr. Mayor?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I hope it
The
dries
one,
out.
the one here now?
Yeah.
I hope it dries out.
What is, have you, Pat?
I've seen it,
I mean, I don't think that's gonna dry out within a year.
Well,
Yeah, you know what the good
Come on,
news is?
yeah. With all the-
We just invented a lake over there.
We have to haul all that garbage that comes off the beach, all that tents and all that stuff. It's got to go over to the EOC now across the bridge every day on Sunday.
Are there any alternate locations that have been identified?
hold on a second.
What was the?
Well, that's what I'm worried about. I've got a trustee meeting tonight. I got at the college.
Significantly broader and higher.
You're right.
Yeah, it was just a surprise.
Mr. Butler, in answer to your question, are there any other alternate locations in consideration? We're not brave enough to suggest that we put a dog park next to any residential area, and the town doesn't own any property that would be conducive to that type of situation. Right now, probably the only place that would be a possibility is over at the Heron Landing Wind, 20-acre dredge spoil site that we own over there. The limiting factor is that there is a small piece of property that basically has us cut off and landlocked, and would require action of the board probably to obtain that in order to secure sufficient access to the property. But there's a nice 20-acre site over there for that type of thing, plus others.
There's an X zone, there's actually an X zone on that site.
Yeah.
That has probably got the prettiest tree on this beach.
Wow.
It looks like a miniature, what's it called, that thing we got in Charleston, it's like a miniature one of those trees, but it's huge down in there. It'd be a shame for it to get cut off. It'd be a great place for a park if we could get to it. It just requires getting across. I think we looked, Margaret, what was it, one or two pieces of property? I think it's two that we have, yeah.
If the board would like us to pursue that and develop it as as a potential option with a list of things that has to occur, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I saw of the berm and the new lake that we created, I'd say if it's possible to do that, yeah.
It may take us a little bit to work that up, and I'm probably going to have to get the attorney involved on it, but we've got a fundamental understanding of the details that are associated with that, and we can pull that together for you.
I'd just like to be able to say we're pursuing an alternative.
That's right.
Yeah, what, would it be out of place for me to say that maybe a good idea to produce a protocol for everything we need to do and bring it back to the board?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay, can we talk about the number that's against Lockwood Folly dredging so it becomes more apparent exactly what it covers?
Sure. As discussed a little bit at the last budget meeting, in prior years, the board was looking at a focus of having everything in there up front instead of doing budget amendments later that we could possibly know about. That equals to the deeper, wider project at $1,033,013. And in talking to the engineer, he feels that they may not have time to, even if Oak Island is able to capture some of the bin widener, to do as thorough a job as what might be there. And it sounds as if there may be a possibility of another AIWW crossing contract next year. So using the numbers that I gave you in the February memo, which is all I have to go on right now, that would be $1,280,000. And then the rest would be some engineering for Fran to go along with the deeper wider, because we're asking for him to do some work as far as possibly making it engineered beach with that project. And then some merit burden contribution if they're here in between and the county has them.
So we would actually, if it was offered to us, we would propose that we take both sand from the Widener as well as deeper crosser, if they deeper wider, if it all happened in the same fiscal year.
That's what this proposes. That would be up to you guys.
I mean, would that be double the sand? I'm just saying so that would be like
Good question.
that would be like the most robust thing that's happened in decades, right?
We've developed this budget assuming that the guidance that the board provided previously is that we want the sand however and whenever we can get it. And so those are the two scenarios that have presented themselves as far as possibilities. So we just gone ahead and said we'll do them both. Yeah.
Which, I understand, yes, which may not happen.
It may not happen.
There'd be way, a lot of sand,
That's
obviously.
right. Yeah.
But, yeah, but just in case. So at that point, didn't we just say we didn't really think we could do the latest AIWW crossing?
That was to get it into this, try to push it into this budget year. They're looking at doing another one next year.
I understand.
possibly. Yeah.
But we just said no thanks to the current budget year, right?
Because of the timing, with the grants, trying to get our permit realigned to capture that, the environmental windows that we were gonna have to go outside with a permit modification, the stars were gonna have to line up to get it to happen this
We
budget
just
year.
felt we couldn't do it,
Accomplish
not that we
it.
didn't
Wasn't-
want to do it.
Right.
Okay.
Wasn't mobilization also included in that,
Okay.
trying to
Yeah.
mobilize another crew? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I've had people, we should never say no to sand, obviously. But sometimes it's just not.
I think that
Possible.
it made it seem like we were gonna have to put forth a haphazard effort that maybe wouldn't have been as fruitful as what we like.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. We ready?
Sit down for a second. Page 27. The salaries beach project, that's a little bit higher because we reclassed some employees, so that shows that.
How many, 2 employees, you said?
I think we reclassed a few, yeah, two
Okay.
or three. And then the beach rangers, you can see their budget down at the bottom. Which they got most of their equipment last year, so that went down quite a bit.
Would you explain the group insurance beach project? $11,699. What? I'm just drawing a blank on that.
Because that's half of a portion of an employee, it's not as much when you add your increased percentage. If that makes sense.
So that's the insurance on the beach rangers?
No,
No.
they don't get insurance.
I'm
That's,
still confused.
that's for I think, some of Chris's men get paid out of that because it's,
Okay,
for
okay, all right,
beach
okay,
work.
now I got it,
Yeah.
I got it.
Whole cost, not just
I
salary.
got it.
ready to move on to canal dredging. Not many comments here because we're getting ready to finish up soon, and this is anticipated for next year, a little over budget. I don't know if you have any questions about that, but if you go to the next slide, the CRS and the CIP, they're not in there yet because we haven't really narrowed down what we need to put in each of those funds yet. You can go back.
Yeah, I want to just make a couple of points about the canal dredging project. Those are really evergreen budgets, and that they are programmed, and to the extent that we pre-position those with escrowed funds and current permits so that it is a programmatic dredging budget. I think that our master plan calls for like an 8-year cycle. But they do stand shovel ready with money and current permits so that in the eventuality that there is a storm that fills up, depending on the dredging capacity that's available, that we could execute, or that's the thought process, we would be more ready to execute a dig project. And the point that I want to make is that even though for example, this year's construction project or the major dig is taking place, there are ongoing expenses that are related to that. We got to keep our permits ready. We have to do post-construction surveys. We have maintenance activities on the dredge spoil sites, like mowing and that kind of thing. And probably the biggest thing in this year is, or the upcoming year, is to be able to manage the Scotch bonnet site, i.e. we got to get that thing dried out, and it's probably going to require some dredging. I'm not dredging, but ditching in there, and probably have to do some, we may have to, once we get it dried out a bit, we may have to do some topographic grading so that we make sure that the water keeps going to the outfall pipe and it doesn't, make a mosquito hole. And then also the idea is to have that project pay for the reconstitution of the dog park. So whatever we're able to work out with the alternative site or this site, those costs are going to, those types of costs on the management of that dike area specifically would be attributable to this project. So even the budget's fine. I just want to make sure that the management of that program, has ongoing expenses. Not anything dramatic, but you got to keep a handle on it, or those things fall off into obscurity. And whenever you need that permit, it's like, oh, that permit's been dead for 3 months. We can't do what we need to do. And as a matter of fact, that program responsibility falls to the assistant town manager.
So,
She gets to keep up.
so
with
when
all
we're
that
complete,
stuff.
we'll still have the money to be shovel ready if a storm happens. Okay.
It's about $2 million.
And we have 2 permits to update this
All
year.
right, and keeping everything up. So I don't want to regress, but the current spoilage area that we used is because of the world's changing, because of the Army Corps of Engineers not allowing us to use theirs. So if that doesn't change,
That's another evolution of what we're going to be confronted with, is the possibility of having to create additional capacity in terms of how that site is, and others will have to be managed.
correct? Okay.
So there are other management activities that are going to happen in this program.
Okay, got it.
But again, there are enough, island, let's just say various municipalities up and down the coast.
Why not push and
in this-
change?
in this boat that there will be an organized effort probably for as long as it takes.
Oh, it's happening now, yeah, I understand that, yeah, but.
My point is that just because we finished this dredging project, it's not done, it's not over.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay.
Mandy,
Okay.
I have a question. Where, under the expenses, we have the $269,000 for the renourishment fund. Where is that reflected in the expenses that we just looked at?
What page are you on?
I'm back to page 11, under expenses, where you have the transfer to B Part, which is reflected in the B Part fund of $657,000. And then beneath that, we have $262,000 that says it's for the beach renourishment fund. But where is that reflected in?
That will be reflected in this, one of the capital reserve funds that I haven't set up yet because
Okay.
I don't have any set numbers to put in there yet.
Okay,
But that's where that would go.
good enough.
The next time we meet, we're gonna have more information, obviously.
Okay.
Right, I mean, that's the whole idea, right?
Well, that's your direction. I mean, as of now, this is, the budget that we have. So
Yeah.
if you had any changes or you'd like me to cut some things or put in some things, it would be good for me to know. So next week when we come back, I'll have some more information to give you. But as of now, this is all the information that I have to present.
Okay, no, that was
Does that
my
make
question. That was
sense?
my question.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I do have one thing, since we all, and this is more for us, to discuss, if not the next meeting, the one after, we all seemed to agree that we should agree on budget message components that we would all think are good, that we would then discuss with David for incorporation in the upcoming year budget message. Last year, we had some ideas and we did, so I would just say we should be thinking about those and ready soon to pass them on to David at one of these meetings so that he can get his head around what a new budget message might look like. Last year, we asked him to do a few things and he did,
That would be good.
so to do it sooner than later would be
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, so we have 3 workshops left, right?
Right, yeah.
I just have one other suggestion and comment, and possibly in Chris's area. Going down to the lift station and seeing all the progress down there and the technology down there and everything, the bell went off in my head, just asking Chris a couple of questions. And this has to do with the suggestion or the idea of a possible intern for the summer. You've got systems down there. We need documentation. We should have documentation pertaining to storage of the drawings, maybe spare parts list, developing spare part list. The one thing that really concerns me is the startup and shutdown, having formalized procedures in place. And Lord knows Chris has enough to do and kind of shorthanded. And I thought an intern might be able to support and help those activities.
Well, as far as startup and operation procedures, Joe, I can pretty much come up with a list as far as doing that. And actually, Airvac will probably provide me with a list of the parts and pieces that we need that are special for that list when they give me the operation manual to it. But I do like your way of thinking there. If I feel short on something other where I think I could get some benefit from something like that, I will keep an open mind to that.
Yeah. And, that's why I suggest while we're thinking about the budget.
Yeah, it's a new complex system. It's amazing. I agree with you, Joe.
I've actually, I know this is sidestepping that, I actually feel like my department learned a great deal last year dealing with Hurricane Florence about how we reconstitute, and I've actually discussed with those guys and do got some different approach this time than I had the last time if we had the same scenario. There is about a $50,000 pump in this budget that's wrote down beside one of those lines there, which will help us with stormwater issues and stuff like that when we do come back for a storm. But as far as operating those stations there now, I've got 3 guys that probably know more about that station than I do. But I will put something on paper where if somebody bails out or something, where somebody could follow it.
Yeah, but one of the
They have a
biggest challenges
Cadillac.
to every project is the end, capturing that knowledge and documenting it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that nobody wants to do.
Right.
But I would just say, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but since it's new and complex, I don't see how you can get an intern who usually comes on the job with very little knowledge, just trying to learn what we have to offer them, how an intern could prepare that type of document for us. I mean, you may be able to find responsibilities and duties for an intern and take the benefit of it, but I don't know if I want to rely on an intern to draft what we're talking about here, what we think is necessary. I mean, you must have had interns in your life.
I have, but, I mean, it'd be a direction, but it's all there. And especially now, since we're gonna do number 3 with hopefully the same people. But, you're right, you'd have to have a lot of direction from Chris, obviously.
We need somebody
He or
with
she.
skill and knowledge to be able to put something that technical together to benefit us.
Well, let's let Chris think about that.
I'll be happy if we get the as-built from the engineers so we can get paid. I'll settle for as-built.
That may be some way of doing too on our GIS stuff. It may be that if we're falling short on something, maybe we get the internship, somebody to help us on some of that. I don't know. We'll get something there.
Give it some thought.
We got anything else for you? Anybody, commissioners? If not, I'd like.
The only other thing I have is the scope of work and services, and I appreciate the fact that, we all got a copy of this. This has to do with the study of the positions and that, and I was just wondering, do we know where we are, or you need any input from us, David, on this?
Not yet, and that is the 4th thing that I neglected. I guess I didn't pick it up when I went
You don't have it on
upstairs
the
either.
sheet,
Yeah, and we wanted to check on the length of the duration, and we got 3 to 4 months back from it. That's what the contract calls for. But to answer your question, we've executed that. We've sent an inquiry as to, hey, when you want to get started on it. Heather, do you have any other conversation with them beyond that?
No, they're supposed to. They're out of town and we're getting back to us at the end of the
They're
week.
out of town, they're gonna get back to us.
So, yeah, let's keep that open.
I have 2 things to mention. The chief of police at 5 o'clock this afternoon, just to remind everybody about that. That's here in this room, right?
Yes, sir.
And also, I sent an email out yesterday asking the board to consider a meeting in regards to follow up on David's. I haven't heard back from anybody. I hope that you're thinking about that. We can soon get a date that we can agree upon to get together and resolve those loose ends. I appreciate it. With that, is there a motion we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're